Welcome to Redhill Games podcast. And today we're talking with Matias, the CEO of Redhill Games, and we're going to discuss his past and his future, and the future of Redhill Games. Okay, welcome, Matias. So let's start talking about you first. So you have been in the industry for 25 years. You've done a lot. You've seen it all. So maybe we can first backtrack a little bit. How did you end up working in game development, and what was your journey like?
It's not quite 25 years. It's a long time ago, but I started in October 1999 at Remedy Entertainment. It was much to the disappointment of my parents. I I just completed my master's. And was quick on my way to go work for Hewlett & Packard in Germany doing SAP 500 integration. And SAP 500 is a wonderful piece of financial software, as you may know. So there's a plug for HP. So I was about to do that. It was everything that you should have taken, basically coming out of business school. So here's the options, the company car, and we'll move your girlfriend over to, and whatever. And then, jumped into a company that, hadn't really released anything except Death Rally, and, was small, and I was like employee 18. Started over there, and, haven't regretted that red pill, blue pill choice ever since. I was there for 16 wonderful years, then moved to Cyprus to be responsible for the worldwide studios for wargaming, best known for World of Tanks and World of Warships. Lived on an airplane for 3 years with 16 different locations. And we got together with friends in 2018 and decided to start Redhill Games.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a good timeline. But I want to first ask a question about a little bit when joining games. So was it your goal from the early on, or was it just a chance that you got to work in games?
I think the world was different then, and not necessarily in a good way, but games were still kind of a little bit in the margin. I can't remember the exact figures, but I think the worldwide games industry was something like 5 to 8 billion, where today we're at, I think, 150 billion. So it's massive growth, and forecasted to go through the roof again. So it really wasn't something that was on the cards, and wasn't something that was possible, but I'd always grown up with games. Never, had the talent to program or to, do art, but always had a great passion for games. And, I was lucky enough to be one of those kids, whose parents got a computer super early in the 80s. So we had an IBM compatible PC at home, and, we were knocking the hell out of the keyboards and breaking those with my kid brother. We even had an anthill in one of those. Unfortunately, my brother kept on eating at the keyboard, which wasn't a great idea when we lived in Manila, because it brings out all kinds of insects. But anyway, I mean, so we had that, and then from that, Amigas, and then when I saw the first PlayStation 1 and the Formula game on that, I thought it looked so photorealistic, and kind of grew up with games, and then. When the opportunity presented itself, it was like a no-brainer for me, because it was something that was cool and attractive, but also just the sheer talent that comes around games is a unique combination of different skill sets. So you have a lot of technical skill sets, artistic skill sets, and and then everything that goes around that, and all the support that that needs. And it's one of those unique melting pots where you get different angles of attack, different kind of competencies, and interesting people. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said that there's artistics and there's technical, and then there's you with business, and that's not exactly like a very common way to kind of enter games, being like the business guy of things.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not that dissimilar. Like any organization since like the dawn of time, it comes from military organizations, right? But you have staff in line. Mm-hmm. So any organization to be effective, it needs enablers, it needs support. So the games aren't going to market themselves. HR, hiring, compensation, I don't know, recruitment, and then you have all the fun stuff, like the auditing doesn't go away, tax doesn't go away. So all of those things are still necessary for a business to operate and to be competitive. So of course, the organizations today that do well are highly professional in kind of the other disciplines as well. You need to be.
So after like Remedy, and then you moved to wargaming, so that's like 20 years of work essentially, and then you decided to exchange the comfort of like corporation and very big established company and jump into this new venture of making or building new company and making own IP and like sort of uncharted waters of sorts.
Yeah, I mean, but for us, I mean, like it was clear many of us had worked together, or we'd all worked together in 2 or 3 companies when we set out to do this, and we kind of shared a common understanding of what good looks like in terms of a organization and kind of how things should happen and run. And the benefit of that kind of history of having seen kind of different places and times and different kind of moments in time when organizations evolve and games get made, you have the benefit of that experience, and you can kind of go, these are the parts of that culture or maybe even process or thing, that's something we want to take, and we want to disregard that part, that wasn't good or it's not a good fit, and kind of build something that's sustainable and good.
Mm-hmm. So what were the key sort of philosophies or principles that you wanted to, or were you following when building Redhill Games? What was the key pillars that the company is built on?
Oh, well, okay. I mean, it goes without saying that any piece of art or entertainment is always going to be a reflection of the team that creates it. So whether it's a book, a film, or any kind of computer game, it's a reflection of the team that builds it. And there, obviously, the capability and the drive of the people that's paramount. But there are certain principles around that for us are super important. Not least of all, like I'm a huge fan of transparency when you can be transparent. There's edge cases where you shouldn't and can't, but on the whole, being transparent with the team and the management and among everybody is super important. So making decisions that stand the light of day in general is important. And so that kind of principle was important. Constant learning. I mean, if we look at how quickly games evolve, and a lot of the knowledge that we have today is going to be outdated and plain wrong in 5 years. And some have said that half of it's going to be like redundant. So constant learning is important. Being able to have the curiosity and the impulse to learn and to evolve your craft, whatever the craft may be. Is super important, and I think we're seeing that. I don't want to jump on the AI buzz train or whatever, but that's obviously going to evolve and it's going to change some things, but that doesn't mean that the human element of making entertainment is going to go away. But it may evolve how we create some things. But anyway, we'll park that because it's a rabbit hole where we can just go deep into that. So that's certainly one thing, and then obviously having a safe place, and I mean safe place as in, you're free to voice your opinion, you're free to have a dissenting opinion, and you're free to take risks, and not everything always works out. It's okay to make a mistake. And that's important, not only because, it's right, but secondly, it also fosters a better end result because if everybody's constantly playing it super safe, then you're never going to have innovations in process or what you're delivering. So it's just I mean, that's some of the principles that we had for sure, and we did also want to bring together the best talent from around the world. And today we're over 20 nationalities, and kind of that reflects it. I think to a large degree.
Was it easy sort of to sell this idea of like making a PC game, for example, or like a focus on PC games in like a world where there's so much predominant mobile games, and especially in Finland, which is like the capital of mobile gaming these days, and then you come in swinging with a PC game or like PC development.
Yeah, I mean it's a good question, but I think the PC games in particular, they do grow. It just hasn't seen the kind of exponential growth that we've maybe seen from mobile platforms. So I think there's definitely a very healthy and growing market for PC and console games. Consoles obviously tend to be a little bit more cyclical, but on the whole, there is growth in the market. It's not just in mobile. And mobile on its own has its own challenges. There's obviously hyper competition. Well, there's competition on all platforms, but you have the discoverability issues and other things that are kind of there to be dealt with. So it's not like it's it's what would you say, blue ocean where you can just swim. It's more like a red ocean where there's a lot of competition and there's a lot of kind of competition to get people to actually download something. So we all know kind of how stuffed the app stores are. But not saying there's one or two releases on Steam and on the consoles as well.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And thank you for PC gaming need to thrive. And
I think fundamentally they're just different kinds of experiences. I love my mobile games, but they serve a different need. At least for me, I'm not saying that I'm less engaged, but for me, a mobile game is almost like it's like a snack. It's having a Mars bar or some quick nachos, and maybe you have the bag of nachos, but you're still having nachos. Whereas for me, kind of a big AAA production, playing something very moody and immersive is more like a 3-course meal. And you just approach it very differently, and that's kind of the meal analogy. To labor more analogies, we watch sports for a different reason than we watch engaging drama or Succession or whatever. They serve a different need. They're both watching, but it's very different. Or and I would my mobile gaming is more like YouTube clips, which I enjoy, but it's a different need from watching a big Hollywood production film from the TV on a Friday night, But that changes with age. I'm old, so kids have a different approach to it.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, and actually a couple of more questions about our team, about Redhill Games, and as you mentioned, we have like a world-class talent. And what do you think is your secret on like attracting the top talent and retaining it as well? Because those are kind of two very important problems or like things you have to deal with.
Yeah. But okay, it's a cliche, but it's true. A players want to play with A players. So talent attracts talent. And basically, if you build and foster a good environment, and that's basically what leadership or management is to a large degree. It's almost like you're a gardener. You're building a greenhouse. You're supposed to make the environment susceptible to growth and for things to thrive. But it's not like you can or should even try to force things. You build the environment where good things can come to life, and then you pray for the best. Ish.
Yeah, so Redhill Games has been operating since 2018. Like it's what, 6 years now? No,
5.
Math, 5. 5 years.
I know math is hard.
Yeah, that's why I'm not a technical guy. Yeah, so 5 years, and like we have given it a shot for making our own title, 9 to 5. It has seen a limited success, and now
I love the way you said limited success. No, I mean let's face it. I mean, that's kind of where 85% of games do land. Like if you look at the statistics, I mean, like there's been great games like Rumbleverse, Splitgate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a part of the nature of games, and it's not a, I don't know, like, how do you look at failure is super important. Did you learn something? Can you, take something from that and as you build forward, or, are you going to be fixated on things that didn't work? So, I can tell you one leads to a very miserable life, and then the other one probably leads to growth. So I think it's having a growth mindset and thinking about those things in that context. So, I think we learned a bunch, and not least of all, I'm super grateful for building 9 to 5. It gave us the chance to also build this team, and was very much a vehicle to get that team together. Would I have wished for it to be a great game and do well and, something that we would go on? Yes. Did it happen? No. So, but on the other hand, we have this wonderful team that we wouldn't have otherwise kind of brought together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then so last year, and we have decided to pivot our strategy towards actually co-development and working with other studios. And can you maybe explain briefly what do you see co-development to be like? What is the core principle of this kind of partnership or business?
Well, I mean, it's not too hard. I mean, essentially, you're working with a larger partner usually to help them to develop their own game, whether it's in production or whether it's in live phase, and you're contributing to that game almost, well, not almost, as a part of the team, either owning certain parts of the game, certain features, or working in teams at the client's end. So it is rather different from kind of outsourcing, which would be kind of on the other end of the spectrum, where it's more model us this asset. We need more benches, more cars, and then those get certified and put into the game. Whereas co-development is very integrated and working very much hands-on to build content.
How common is actually this sort of partnership? Because it feels like it's sort of under the radar, and there are some surprisingly large companies that do that. And it's like, how common is it in the industry?
I think as the productions have grown throughout the years, it's more and more common. So they're great companies in the space. Certain Affinity out of Austin, Iron Galaxy originally out of Chicago. I mean, both have multiple studios now. Behavior out in Canada, Sumo in the UK. So there's multiple kind of partners doing that. I think it's a logical evolution of where the industry is and kind of is going. You can imagine some of the larger titles and the hits in our industry require a tremendous amount of people and a lot of velocity, especially if they're live. And to feed basically gamers what they're asking for. So I think there's certainly elements of that that is kind of fueling co-development, and also allows more flexibility kind of at kind of the client side, if you will. Not to speak on their behalf or generally larger game companies, but if you needed to ramp up suddenly with people. Even if you can get the people into the seats, they haven't necessarily worked as a cohesive team. And there's a huge difference between, putting, 70 random people into seats and asking them to start delivering versus, these people have worked together as a team, they communicate, they function, they fill in each other's weaknesses, they work on the strengths of the individuals. And there's a tremendous difference between that versus, oh, here we go. Day one, go ahead, run.
Yeah, so it certainly makes an easier onboarding as well. You don't have to get all those 70 people to random 70 people to learn everything from the scratch and learn how to work with each other as well. So it takes I guess a lot of time away from the production as well. So do you think that with the way AAA games are getting more and more complex and more expensive into production and more time consuming, co-development will be a larger practice moving on, like that more studios will take on partners in co-development?
I do think so. Like there would be appetite, definitely, to, at least from what I can tell. But the fact is that there's also limited resource of really good co-development studios. It is a fact that there's only so many. And only so many teams available, and usually, the good ones are booked for a while.
When Redhill Games have joined co-development space and started working with the first partner, what were the biggest challenges or hurdles that the studio had to overcome in order to actually transition from development of own titles and to co-development with someone else?
So there's a lot of things that don't change. Usually for people who work hands-on on games, there's a love of the craft, and that painstaking attention to detail, that love of what you do, remains the same. and that kind of whatever got you originally excited about what you're doing, and something that gives you joy, energy, and meaning in your work doesn't really go away. So that remains unchanged. I think what does change is obviously the project you're working on, and then also, and hopefully it's something that the team is passionate about, which luckily for us is the case. But maybe that's one thing, and then I don't know. I mean, thinking about it, a lot of it remains the same, but you are also usually responsible to deliver. You commit and deliver onto something that potentially tens of millions of people are seeing. So it's super important to to take that responsibility seriously. So you're kind of you need to bring your A game to the show.
Yeah, for sure. And for you as like the head of this Redhill Games studio, like what was the most important thing that you wanted to sort of preserve when transitioning, and like how did you what did you focus on when transitioning the studio like through this co-development? Like, what was like that we cannot lose this part of ourselves, or like we cannot waste like the talent or like our integrity?
Yeah, I mean, those are, integrity you should never lose, no matter what you're doing. Otherwise, you're screwed, and potentially going to hell, depending on your religious view. I think it's, obviously maintaining the culture, but that, if obviously assuming that your current culture is fit for purpose for your new mission. In our case, happy to say it was, fit for purpose, and, is actually fruitful for what we're doing. So maintaining that is super important.
Mm-hmm. So there's obvious challenges and in co-development, and there's new problems. But what was a moment when, after being now co-development studio, when you thought like, oh, thank God, I don't have to think about this anymore? Like something that was painstaking when you were working on own titles, and now that it's more co-development thing. That was there something that you like? I'm glad that this is not on my plate anymore.
I don't know. I mean, the challenges of launching your own title obviously they're challenges, but they have their own allure, and they're fun. But obviously, you do remove kind of quote unquote the market risk of your own game. So that goes away, and you're no longer staring at that, and so that element does kind of go away. But that being said, like I said, it has its own pros and cons as well. It's fun, but it's also it's a risk. So that kind of goes away. I think equally. What else goes away? I can't really, a lot of the responsibilities of maintaining and growing a studio with good culture, good values, those don't really change. So the day-to-day, actions may change, but you're still kind of building towards, the same kind of elements. So I think that's a non-answer for you.
No, it was a good answer. That it's the market risk is of course very important, and whenever you're launching a game, it's sort of a gamble, no matter how much research you do and things. So, but I guess in co-development, it's sort of not, you don't have the full responsibility for how the final product is going to be, as long as you do your part very well.
Yeah.
And the question I wanted to ask now is, what do you think is most important thing in co-development relationships? Like how to make that relationship be successful and work, like between the co-development partners?
Well, I mean, I think as with any relationship, trust is super important, and sometimes, especially with when you're working on a game that a team has built, and they've taken it to a certain point, whatever that point may be. You need to earn that trust. So so basically, with your own kind of actions, you need to demonstrate that you're worthy of the trust. If you're asked to do something, it goes back to kind of what a slogan from my history, but it's kind of commit and deliver. You're committed to doing this, and then you'll deliver. So that very much does, that gets you a long way.
Maybe like a question from viewers who might be interested in, or like looking for a job or looking to join a co-development studio. What do you think is like main selling point from the perspective of us as employer towards the potential new talent? Very twisted question.
No. I think it's a decent question. I think a lot of the draws or the pros of codev are the same as with any kind of game development. You're working in entertainment, creating something fun, working at your craft, hopefully learning every day, and working with wonderful people around you, so those things are there. If you're lucky enough to join a good co-development studio who's working with some of the larger IPs and great games, you might have the opportunity to work on one thing and then in the future work on another thing, maybe at a quicker cycle than for example, you could be working on a live game as a service on one game for a very, very long time. If you're in that role particularly, whereas I think in co-development you may have the chances to rotate and also work on different kinds of IP and kind of get new learnings and also kind of artistically get some fresh air. But that being said, I think a lot of the draws are the same. And once again, I'd go to talk to people who've been there or are there. To find out, is it a culture fit for you? I wouldn't underestimate that. Like all things, not belittling, such small things as compensation, location, whatever. But also like, is it a good culture fit? Is it a place where you go to work in the morning and you come back with more energy, or is it a place where you go to work and you feel you're drained of energy? And that's a super important thing. Like I'm not saying that myself or others don't have days that are more like digging a ditch. Sometimes that happens. If that's maybe 20% of your work and you're doing things that you don't necessarily enjoy or get energy out of, that's fine. But majority of the time you should be playing to your strengths with people you like working with and feeling good about that. And that's just something that can happen in a good studio, co-development or not, and that's super important.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think is why people should join Redhill Games particularly?
Redhill Games, we have good coffee. No, for Redhill, we're working with some of the biggest IP in the games industry. We have a seasoned team around us with some young talent, promising, and I think it's a very good mix. So the team itself has a great way of interacting, has a great way of working together, and there's a curiosity to learn and become better at what we do. And being part of something like that is usually good for yourself and kind of, good for your skills as well, but also it's fun. I think we manage kind of to balance the line between, I'd call it almost quote unquote kind of casual professionalism. So, we know what we're doing, we're seasoned. It's not kind of our first rodeo, but it doesn't mean that you need to be stiff upper lip all about it all the time. So you can have fun while you're doing it. It's not going to belittle your work or make it less worthy. So I think there's definitely elements there. We're also located in Helsinki for headquarters, which is apparently the happiest country Finland's the happiest country in the world. And Helsinki's like rated top 3 in Europe for relocation. Then we have a small office in Cyprus on the Mediterranean. So what's wrong with a Mediterranean bat cave? So yeah, I think there's there's wonderful opportunities in terms of locations for people looking to, start an adventure. I'd say, like currently, like I said, we have folks from over 20 nationalities, so that's definitely been a draw, and people seem to like it here, and feel very comfortable, and kind of do stay with us. So that's definitely, I think the proof in the pudding, if you will. But yeah, I mean, there's that, and good coffee.
The coffee is good. That's true. Okay, and then maybe the final question of this. So, what's next? What's our ambition? What's our goals? And what are we planning?
No, I mean, there's a lot of, CEOs or leaders who state bold goals and, whatever financial goals and so forth. But for me, the key thing is, we'll maintain on this path of perfecting the craft of what we're doing and becoming the best code development studio in Europe. That would be kind of my aspiration for us on this journey. And we'll continue to grow and then sustain that culture. And obviously, we're getting better and better as we go along in pretty much everything we do. And, that's it. We're far from perfect. We have our own weaknesses and our own mistakes and whatever. But the most important thing is that we're getting better day by day. And, that path of improvement will continue. So I'm excited. I have a picture in my head of, where we will be in 2 or 3 years. And kind of that's kind of cemented, there. And, maybe talk about that when we get there. Too many people talk about what they're going to do. I'd rather, we can revisit this, what we've done.
Perfect. And yeah, I think that's, unless you have anything to add, I think this would be a very swift and prompt little podcast that we organized. And
wonderful. No, this was good. Thank you, Semi. Fist bump.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, wow.
Okay.
30 minutes.